Hi everyone, we have another shortish video for our third reading in The Great Believers. For reasons that I mentioned last time, we have fewer new illusions that need to be explained, right? Our world building has already been established, our characters have been established, and in the case of this book, a lot of the artists that were illusions in the very beginning are now becoming, in a way, some of our characters. So there's a little bit less to go over in that sense. But this week I want to go over some of the public figures in the HIV/AIDS crisis that are mentioned by name in the book. There is obviously more to each person's political or public persona than I'll be able to talk about here. So I know that I'm talking about a select scope for each person. I did try to keep it focused specifically on their stance towards HIV/AIDS and or LGBTQ community members for the purposes of this book, just to give you a sense of why some of the characters refer to them in some of the ways that they do. Right? So first up, one of the people that's mentioned by name is Jesse Helms. Some of these people come up more than once. I think I try to give you the page number where they're first brought up because that's usually when there's the most context. So Jesse Helms is first referenced on page 229. He was a North Carolina senator from 1973 to 2003. Super conservative. He opposed HIV/AIDS funding in America. And he wrote a bill that allowed the U.S. to ban HIV-positive people from entering the country. And it actually was in effect from 1987 until 2010. He also opposed needle exchange programs, which, if you're not familiar with, obviously there's more nuance to the issue, but my oversimplified explanation is that they are programs that allow people who use drugs that require needles to exchange a used needle for a clean one. Supporters like to point out that people with drug addictions cannot necessarily change their habits overnight, even if they are unsafe, and so clean needles at least provide them a safer or a reduced harm way to continue their habits. People who oppose them typically say that, it allows or permits people to continue using drugs. Either way, especially with HIV/AIDS, where for a lot of people it was transmitted via shared needles, this was something that was identified as a huge help to be able to try to eliminate the need for that. And he was somebody who was very opposed to those programs. Another public figure mentioned by name is Jerry Falwell. His name first comes up on page 264. He is not a political figure. He is a pastor / televangelist, so one of the people who's on TV who can reach a large number of people within a certain religious community. This is one of his quotes, so I think it gives a good context to why characters in the book feel the way that they do about him. He said, "AIDS is not just God's punishment for homosexuals, it is God's punishment for the society that tolerates homosexuals." He did later acknowledge that some of his quotes were examples of hate speech. He also, this is kind of a side note, for some of you, you may remember this, some of you may not. In early 1999, there was this huge thing about how one of the Teletubbies was allegedly gay and how this was going to be damaging to children. He was the person that started that, from what I'm able to gather. In late 1999, he did attempt to reconcile with the gay community. Again, like I mentioned, he acknowledged that some of his quotes were intolerant. I believe this is the last one that comes up by name, and that is Pat Robertson. He is another televangelist. He is the host of the 700 Club, which, if you're like me, you saw every Saturday morning on ABC Family and wondered what it was and why it was taking up 3 hours of stuff that could have been good Disney reruns. Also very conservative. He, over time, has a pattern of connecting tragic events to American policies that he disagreed with. So you can kind of get a sense of his stance towards the LGBT community and therefore why people in the book felt the way that they did about them. He is quoted as saying that September 11th was caused by the ACLU, abortionists, pagans, feminists, gays, and lesbians. He was also quoted as saying that he thought Hurricane Katrina was God's punishment for America's abortion policy, and that the earthquake in Haiti was because they had a pact with the devil, which is kind of a coded racist reference back to ancient practices of different religions. Okay. So those are 3 people. Like I said, short, I don't know about sweet, but short video. Feel free to look them up a little bit more. I'm just giving you kind of the tip of the iceberg, the bare surface, to get to understand why they're being mentioned by name here.